I used to believe Adam was my safe place. He came into my life like an anchor thrown into a storm. I was just out of a controlling relationship, barely surviving 2 jobs to afford a shoebox apartment downtown with a window view of a crumbling brick wall. I was tired of trusting the wrong people, and frankly, I was tired of trusting myself. Then there he was. We met at a networking event I didn't even want to attend. He wore a dark tailored suit, silver tie, and held his wine glass like he'd been born in a boardroom. He wasn't loud or boastful, that's what got me. He was precise, deliberate, and when he smiled, it wasn't charming, it was calm, safe. We talked all evening. I told him about my past, my father's temper, my mother's silences, the way love had always felt like a test I was destined to fail. And when I asked what he did for a living, he gave me the first red flag wrapped in a velvet bow. I help people get what they deserve, he said, sipping his wine. Especially women, especially mothers. I thought he was a lawyer with a heart. I didn't ask the kind of, what do you really mean by that, questions I should have. I was too caught up in the idea that maybe, just maybe, I'd finally found someone who could see through my scars and still want to hold me. A month later, we were inseparable. 3 months in, I moved into his condo, clean lines floor to ceiling, windows, everything in shades of gray and steel. He said it felt like a blank canvas. I didn't realize he meant it was his stage. By the end of the year, we were married. A quiet courthouse wedding. No family, no friends, just us, he said. He wanted it that way. Simple, intimate, honest. I thought it was romantic. Now I know it was tactical. We had our son Caleb a year later. The day he was born, Adam cried. That was the last time I saw him express anything that looked like real emotion. At first, he was a doting father, woke up for night feedings, bought books on parenting, held Caleb against his chest for hours while I rested. But slowly that changed. He started using phrases like, I'll take care of it and you don't need to worry about that. At first it was comforting, then it was suffocating. He monitored the baby monitor more than I did. He reorganized my phone, installing some parenting apps, and deleting others. He said he was just trying to help me stay focused. Then he insisted on handling our finances. You've got enough on your plate, he told me. I'm better with numbers anyway. I didn't fight it. I was too exhausted, too grateful, too afraid of sounding ungrateful. And when I broke down, sleep-deprived, anxious, drowning in postpartum fog, he held me. He rubbed my back. He said, I know it's hard for you to manage emotional regulation sometimes. At the time, I thought it was empathy. Later, I found out he was documenting it. He took pictures of me crying. He saved voice memos of our arguments. He emailed himself records of my emotional outbursts, framing them as notes for his therapist friend, who's giving us advice. Except I never saw that friend, never spoke to her. And I didn't notice how often he'd start fights with me in front of Caleb, only to later claim I was emotionally unstable around our child. He made me doubt myself so gently I thought I was healing, until the papers came. Divorce, full custody, filed without a word. He had it all lined up, dated screenshots of texts pulled out of context, audio clips edited to sound unhinged, and even a fake journal entry he claimed he found in my drawer. It painted me as someone unfit, dangerous, borderline psychotic. He claimed I had paranoid delusions, that I was emotionally volatile, that I once screamed so loudly it made Caleb cry for hours. That one hurt the most because the only time that ever happened was when I thought I was miscarrying our second child. He used my grief as Exhibit A. I remember sitting in our kitchen holding the thick envelope from his attorney while Caleb played with Legos in the living room. I was numb. Betrayed didn't even begin to cover it. But what haunted me more than the legal attack was how calm Adam was. He looked at me with this neutral, professional smile like I was just another client who didn't know they were about to lose. It's better this way, he said quietly. You're not well, and I can prove it, but I don't want to destroy you. I just want what's best for Caleb. That's when I realized he wasn't angry, he wasn't even vengeful. This wasn't emotional, this was a strategy. He planned this for months, maybe years. He had quietly built a case to take the one thing from me that would truly break me. My son. And the worst part? He had almost everything he needed to win. Almost the courtroom was colder than I expected, not in temperature and tone. Mahogany walls polished until they gleamed like history was watching. The judge's bench stood like a monolith, unmoved by emotion, untouched by pleading. Rows of strangers sat behind me, eyes glazed over, not realizing they were about to witness the quietest execution of a mother's soul. I sat alone at the petitioner's table, my hands clenched in my lap so tightly my knuckles went white. Across from me, Adam. His suit was pristine, his cufflinks subtle. Everything about him said, I'm put together, I'm the stable one, I'm the hero who tried. He didn't even look at me. That's what gutted me the most. I wasn't even worthy of contempt, just omission. The bailiff called order, the judge entered, and just like that, my motherhood went on trial. Adam's lawyer was the first to speak. She stood with the confidence of someone who'd been handed a script, rehearsed 1,000 times. Her voice was syrupy, polite, like a well-trained blade. Your Honor, we are not here to demonize Miss Hale. We are simply here to protect the child. There is ample evidence of emotional instability, erratic behavior, and a consistent pattern of psychological distress that, while we do not blame her for, makes her an unsuitable primary guardian. She called it empathy. I called it assassination in silk gloves. Then came the exhibits. A printed log of texts I barely remembered sending, some from nights I was sobbing on the bathroom floor, begging Adam to come home. Others pulled from context where I vented to him, trusted him, thinking I was safe. Now they were used like daggers, labeled as threats, unhinged ramblings, she said. A grainy recording of me raising my voice. That's her yelling at Mr. Hale in front of the child, the lawyer claimed. She didn't mention I was screaming because I just learned Adam had canceled my therapy without telling me. Then came the so-called journal. He had typed it himself. I could tell it used phrases I'd never use. Paranoia episodes, losing grip, hearing things. It was fiction, but it had a leather cover and coffee stains, and that made it real enough for the court. And they nodded, even the judge. That was the moment my breath caught in my chest, I realized. I was losing not just the case, but my narrative, my truth. I was no longer seen as a mother, I was a file folder of concerns. My lawyer, public defender, assigned at the last minute, tried to object weakly. Your Honor, these materials haven't been forensically authenticated. They weren't challenged in pretrial, the judge responded, already weary. I looked at her, the judge. A woman in her 60s, silver hair, clean eyes, but no softness, just procedural precision. I wondered if she ever had to prove she was sane to keep her children. Then the witnesses began. First, Adam's mother. Polished pearls, pressed cardigan, sanctimonious smile. She wasn't a bad mother, she just wasn't capable. There were days I'd come by and she'd still be in bed. Caleb would be watching TV alone. Once I found him trying to microwave butter. She didn't mention that I'd had surgery the week before, or that Caleb microwaved butter because he wanted to bring me toast in bed. Then the final twist of the knife, Adam himself. He walked to the stand slowly, calm, respectable. The kind of demeanor juries drool over, even though this wasn't a jury trial. He knew the performance mattered. It always did. I love my wife, he said. First, I want to be clear about that, but love isn't the same as trust, and when it comes to our son's well-being, I can't take chances anymore. He pulled out a folder, therapist notes. From his therapist, I began documenting things out of concern, not strategy. I tried to get her help. She refused. That was a lie. He canceled my sessions. He told the therapist I no longer wished to continue. I found the email months later forwarded from his account. He ended his statement with a sigh so authentic, I felt the judge lean into it. She's not evil, she's just not well, and Caleb deserves better than someone unraveling in real time. He sat down. I stared at the table, not speaking, because if I opened my mouth, I'd scream, and screaming was exactly what they were waiting for. Instead, I whispered to my lawyer. Don't call me to the stand, are you sure, he asked. Yes, not today. Today wasn't about proving innocence. It was about watching him show his hand. Let them play their perfect game. Let them hand the judge a curated illusion. I would wait, and I would strike when the silence got too loud to ignore. When the hearing adjourned for the day, Adam walked past me without acknowledgement, but he paused by my chair for just long enough to drop a line into my ear like venom. You were never meant to be a mother. I'm just making it official. I didn't flinch, but inside something calcified. Not rage, not even grief. Focus. The kind of focus you don't come back from. The kind born when someone tries to steal your blood and call it mercy. Outside, reporters waited. One snapped a photo of me walking down the courthouse steps alone, my hands clenched, my face unreadable. The caption the next day read, Mother faces custody challenge amid mental health concerns. I didn't speak to the press, not then, because the truth wasn't for the public, it was for the courtroom, and I was going to bury it like a landmine, quiet and visible, until it exploded. That night I kissed Caleb on the forehead during our court-ordered supervised visit. He smiled, pressed something into my palm before our time was up. Daddy said you're sick, he whispered. Do you think I'm sick, I asked. He shook his head. Then I opened my hand. It was a folded piece of paper, a drawing, me holding his hand under a sun with the word home. I didn't cry because tears were ammunition and I needed clarity. I took a deep breath and I made the call. Hey, Jules, I need you. It's time I didn't vanish in the way dramatic stories like to paint it. There was no storming out, no slamming doors, no suitcases dragged across hardwood floors in the dead of night. I disappeared the way water slips through cracks quietly, gradually, until there's nothing left but silence. I let Adam think I was broken, let the court think I was tired. I let everyone believe that I had accepted the outcome, because that's what they needed to believe. And I needed time. So I played the part. I showed up to the next supervised visit with my hair brushed, my voice, even my eyes empty. I said thank you to the court-appointed monitor. I smiled at Caleb, read him his favorite book, kissed his forehead like my soul wasn't bleeding through the pages of Where the Wild Things Are. And when I got home, I pulled out an old contact card from a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Jules Tanaka, cybersecurity consultant, ethical hacker, former flame. The only person I knew who could break into digital shadows without leaving a footprint. I hadn't spoken to her since college. We ended badly. I ghosted her after our third stolen weekend in Santa Fe because I couldn't bear the thought of being truly seen. But when I called her number, she answered before the second ring. "You vanished," she said. "No hello, just that?" "I need help." There was a beat silence on her end then. "Where do we start?" Jules showed up at my apartment 2 days later. Same combat boots, same shaved undercut, same eyes like fire and code. She didn't hug me, she didn't ask questions. She just walked in, sat at my kitchen counter, opened her laptop and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. Every twisted detail, every false report, every forged document, every call Adam made under the guise of concern. Jules didn't flinch, didn't interrupt. She just typed, "He's using metadata against you," she murmured, scrolling through the files I'd pulled from Discovery, all this carefully timed emails sent from his own account. But he forwarded them to others to make it look like concern audio files cut in Audacity. He's good, but not flawless. That was the first time I breathed in days. We created a shared folder, labeled it CSR, short for Custody Strategy Retaliation. Each file had a code name. Butter microwave incident. The nanny cam footage Jules recovered from a corrupted drive I didn't even remember we had. Therapy kill email. The forwarded email from Adam to my therapist signed in my name. Voice note 47. The unedited clip of me not yelling, just crying as Adam gaslit me into thinking I forgot Caleb's birthday. The deeper we dug, the more sinister it got. Adam hadn't just built a legal case. He'd constructed a digital reality, one where I was mentally unfit, emotionally unstable, and irreparably damaged. But he made one mistake. He taught me how he worked, and I was done being the student. I began documenting him. Every visit, every phone call, every word Caleb said that felt off. "Daddy says if I'm good, I don't have to go to therapy anymore. He told me you don't want me." I recorded it all, but I didn't store it on my phone. That was too easy to compromise. I gave it to Caleb, or rather, I gave it to the little blue backpack he took everywhere. We called it Detective Dino. It had a hidden zipper stitched into the lining, inside a flash drive, encrypted, updated weekly. Jules taught me how to air-gap my data, how to scan for spyware, how to speak in code through text, email, even phone calls. And then she taught Caleb, through bedtime stories disguised as puzzles, through games that taught him how to recognize manipulation. If someone tells you a lie over and over again, does it make it true, she'd ask. No, Caleb would say, eyes wide, voice steady, it just makes them a liar who's practiced. He was 7, but he was watching and he was learning. We worked in shadows for 8 weeks. Then came the day I found the thread that unraveled Adam's entire case. It was buried in a forgotten backup on his old iCloud account, one I still had access to through a shared iPad we used when Caleb was a baby. Jules cracked it using an exploit she called the backdoor nobody updates. Inside was a video, blurry low quality, but the audio was clear. Adam drunk talking to someone on speakerphone. "Yeah, she's gonna break eventually. All I need is one more breakdown in front of the monitor and the judge will lock her out for good. I don't want joint, I want full. She's a liability, man. I'm not losing Caleb because she can't keep her hormones straight." The voice on the other end laughed. That laugh would later be matched to his best friend's voice. The same man who'd signed an affidavit against me. That night, I sat in my living room watching the video on loop, my hands trembling not from fear, but from precision. The kind of trembling a sniper feels before the trigger. "You have him," Jules said, leaning over my shoulder. "Not yet," I said, "but soon." The court date was set, final custody hearing. Adam was ready to win. I let him think I was coming in unarmed. No lawyer, no drama, just me. He arrived, smug hand resting lightly on Caleb's shoulder, dressed like a politician with something to sell. The judge took her seat, the same woman. The same eyes, but this time I didn't look away. I didn't shake, I didn't beg. Instead, when given the chance to speak, I said 4 words. "I have new evidence." I handed over a sealed folder. Inside the full digital chain of falsified emails, the raw audio files, the nanny cam footage, and the video. The judge asked who extracted it. I provided a certified forensic affidavit courtesy of Jules under a legal alias. She reviewed the materials. Her jaw clenched just slightly, but enough. And then I said, "Your Honor, I would like to call one last witness." The courtroom paused. Even Adam turned. And that's when Caleb stood up. 7 years old, his backpack slung over one shoulder, the flash drive in his hand. He walked to the bench without a word. And the judge nodded. Caleb didn't hesitate. 7 years old, 41 inches tall, dressed in a tiny navy blazer I'd sewn a week before. He stood in the courtroom like it was his living room, like he wasn't about to become the axis around which our entire story would turn. He held up the flash drive like it was just another object in his backpack, just another plastic thing, in a world full of noise. But I could see it in his shoulders and the way he inhaled. He knew what he was holding. Not a file, not a video, a detonator. The bailiff stepped forward, hesitated, then took it gently from Caleb's hand and brought it to the clerk. The judge glanced at me. "Do you verify this was submitted into evidence?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said, voice steady. "Under forensic certification and chain of custody standards, signed this morning." Adam shifted in his seat, not dramatically, not visibly, just a flicker. His jaw moved left. His hand pulled at the cuff of his shirt. But I knew that man. I'd watched him lie with his whole face before, and I saw it now. Panic. The kind that arrives too late. The clerk inserted the drive. The screen behind the judge flickered to life. Black background timecode running. Then the video began. A grainy recording, audio, sharp footage recovered from a hidden nanny cam he'd long forgotten. The living room, Adam pacing. Phone on speaker. She's gonna break eventually. All I need is one more breakdown in front of the monitor, and the judge will lock her out for good. I don't want joint, I want full. She's a liability, man. I'm not losing Caleb because she can't keep her hormones straight. There it was. The man behind the curtain. Not the grieving father, not the wounded husband. The strategist, the manipulator, the architect of my erasure. The video played on laughing from the other end of the line. A friend's voice, recognizable, identified, matched with sworn testimony previously submitted in Adam's favor. Then the second file began. Caleb's voice, shaky, secretly recorded in his room on a handheld audio recorder Jules had given him, inside a plush teddy bear. Daddy said you don't love me anymore. He said you were gonna leave because your brain is sick. The courtroom fell completely still. But I know that's not true. Mommy always calls me even when she cries. She says she loves me 3 times. She says I'm her reason. And then from the same recording, his tiny voice, I think Daddy lies. Sometimes I don't want to lie. The screen cut to black. The judge didn't speak. Her lips parted, but no words came. For a full 10 seconds, the only thing you could hear was the hum of the old ventilation system in the back of the room. Then, Ms. Hale, she said finally, do you have any further submissions? Only this, Your Honor. I stood. Every file, every statement has been verified by a certified digital forensics expert, including the metadata confirming the video's original creation date, which aligns exactly with the dates listed in Mr. Hale's custody claims. He fabricated concern. He manufactured instability. He orchestrated this entire narrative while coaching our son to see me as a threat. I paused, looked straight at Adam. But Caleb never saw a monster because he already knew who the monster was. Adam stood abrupt, too fast, too sharp. This is manipulation. This is emotional coercion. She planted these. Mr. Hale, the judge, cut in voice now sharp as glass. Sit down now. He did. His lips were white from pressure. He looked like a man who'd spent years building a throne only to find it made of sand. The judge removed her glasses. That I've learned is the moment the tide turns. Judges don't remove glasses unless something hurts. In my 26 years on this bench, she began, I have heard stories that made me question the foundations of human love and cruelty alike. But rarely have I seen a case of such profound manipulation, targeted gaslighting, and calculated legal abuse as this. She turned to Adam. You exploited the legal system. You created false documentation. You weaponized therapy. You attempted to alienate a child from his mother under the guise of concern, and you nearly succeeded. If not for this flash drive, if not for a 7-year-old child with more moral clarity than the adults entrusted with his care, this court would have ruled against an innocent woman. She cleared her throat. The words shook. I don't cry on this bench, but if I did, today would be the day. A pause. Custody is hereby awarded to Ms. Hale, full and immediate supervised visitation only for Mr. Hale, pending psychological evaluation and further review by Child Protective Services. Adam opened his mouth. The judge raised her hand. Say one more word and I will hold you in contempt. I didn't exhale until the gavel struck wood. It echoed through my bones like thunder, like absolution, like something long buried had finally clawed its way to the surface and screamed. Caleb ran to me, arms out. I knelt down, catching him mid-flight. He held my face in his tiny hands and whispered, Did we win? No, baby, I said. We just told the truth loud enough for someone to hear it. Outside the courthouse, a reporter tried to shove a mic in my face. Ms. Hale, what would you say to other mothers going through the same thing? I turned, looked her dead in the eye. Don't raise your voice, raise the evidence. Later that night, I tucked Caleb into bed in our new apartment, 2 bedrooms, 1 balcony, a view of nothing but sky. He slept holding the teddy bear that saved us. I stood by the window, watching stars blink into focus. Jules texted Phase 1, complete, you ready for Phase 2? I typed back. I already started. He tried to take everything. Now I take what's mine. There was no parade waiting for me after the verdict. No balloons, no applause, no victory soundtrack swelling in the background. Just silence, honest, sacred, unbroken silence, and the kind of peace that feels almost too fragile to touch. I took Caleb home, my home. He climbed into bed without resistance that night. No tantrums, no tears, just a sleepy smile and a hand that curled around mine before he drifted off. I don't have to choose anymore, he murmured, eyes half closed. You never had to, I whispered. But he had, 'cause Adam made sure he did. Adam didn't show up to his court-ordered psych evaluation twice. On the 3rd summons, he arrived late, irate, and refused to answer half the questions. His visitation was suspended, and the legal team that once backed him with ruthless precision, they dropped him publicly. His reputation as a rising litigator collapsed overnight. You can be powerful, you can be smart, but if a judge cries on the record because of what you've done, no firm wants your name on their website. The fallout was swift, but I didn't watch it unfold. I didn't refresh articles, I didn't gloat. Because I wasn't after his destruction, I was after my restoration. 2 months later, I received a letter. Typed no return address, just one line. You think this is over? It's not. No signature, but I recognized the arrogance in every space between the words. Old me would have shaken new me. I added it to a file labeled Threats Documented, and I kept moving. I bought a house, not a mansion, not a showpiece, just a sturdy little home on a quiet street with ivy climbing the brick and sun pooling in the kitchen every morning. Caleb chose his own paint colors. Blue for the ceiling, green for the closet. I didn't argue. We planted lavender by the porch. He named each bush after superheroes. We started over not as survivors, as architects. I still dream about the courtroom sometimes, the way my voice echoed when I said I have new evidence. But what lingers more than the sound is the look, the judge, her face. Not just surprise. Grief. Like she realized too late how close she'd come to destroying the wrong person. That's the part that stays, because women like me don't get second chances. Not usually. We get silenced, misdiagnosed, reduced to headlines, misquoted in court transcripts, disbelieved in the language of law. But not this time. This time, the flash drive spoke, and for once the system listened. Jules came by the new place one Saturday. She brought wine and digital blueprints. I've been thinking, she said, spreading them out on the dining table. You're not just a mother who won a case. You're a blueprint. You could help others build something that makes the next one easier. I stared at the sketches. An online resource for women navigating custody warfare, encrypted data vaults, legal aid channels, emotional tracking logs that couldn't be weaponized. We called it Reclaim. It launched 6 months later, not with noise, with precision. Women started reaching out quietly, carefully, one by one they came. Each story like mine, but not each woman carrying a different kind of war in her lungs. I didn't counsel them, I didn't preach, I just gave them the same thing Jules gave me. A flashlight, a folder, a map. Adam tried to sue me for defamation. The case was dismissed in under 10 minutes. Why? Because I never told the soul what happened to me. The documents did, and documents don't lie. They just sit there quiet and undeniable, waiting for someone brave enough to hold them up to the light. There was one last thing I needed to do. I asked Caleb if he wanted to visit the old courthouse. Why, he asked. We already won. Not to fight, I said, to thank. We walked into the judge's chambers on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. She looked up from her desk, startled. Ms. Hale. We're not here to reopen anything. I smiled. Just wanted to say thank you for listening. She stared at Caleb, at the boy who had once held a courtroom's breath in his tiny hands. Then she removed her glasses again. You saved your mom, she said. She saved me first, he replied. And that was the only closure I ever needed. That night, Caleb found an old photo in one of the moving boxes. Our wedding day. Me younger, softer. Adam all charm and angles and ambition. Is that him, he asked. Yes. Are you sad? I thought about it, about everything I lost. Then I looked around. At the house, at the peace, at the life rebuilt, brick by brick, lie by lie, undone. No, I said, he taught me how to fight, but you taught me why. He nodded like that made perfect sense. Then he tossed the photo in the trash, just like that. People ask me now quietly, carefully, if I'd do it again. Go through the trial, the humiliation, the silence, the wait. My answer is always the same. If I had to relive the pain to remember my power every time, because this wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. This was a mother burned down to the bone, rising with the truth clutched in one hand and her son's future in the other.